First thing we're gonna notice about the bridge is it says Epiphone. This actually isn't news to us. Today, we're gonna be unboxing and checking out and doing a deep dive on a Squier guitar. So today's video is sponsored by Sweetwater. So what does that mean? It means that Sweetwater sent this guitar and we're gonna give it away to you guys. So if you want to enter to win this guitar, it's super easy. You go down to the description down below, you click the link, it takes you to our website. No one will contact you through social media, and we'll talk about it more at the end of the video. So let's get into this. This is a guitar that I used to want when it was a Fender. Believe it or not, this was a USA made Fender before they reissued it as the Squier. Here's your 55-point inspection card. I did a very intense deep dive of that inspection process. You can click the link down below to that video. What do we have? We have the Stratasonic. This is a vintage blonde. See, I was gonna say TV yellow. I'm sure that's a big no-no because TV yellow is probably a Gibson owned color name. You really can't own colors. You can only own the names of colors. So a lot of companies, they use the same colors, but they'll name them something and trademark that name. So you can't refer to that color with that name, even though you can get that exact same color. But this one is going to be called Vintage Blonde. It's a gloss finish. It is polyurethane. We have a kume body, so light. Very light guitar. We'll give you the weight when we do the geeky stuff. Fretboard is Indian Laurel fretboard. You have a maple neck, vintage style tuners, compensated wraparound bridge, which we'll go over in detail. Fender Alnico soap bar single coils, so single coils. One volume push-pull series parallel switch, and then one tone knob push-push. Nope, that's push-pull. Says push-push phase, but it's push-pull phase switch. 9 to 42 gauge strings, no gig bag or case, they're sold separately. The nut material is graphite. All right, so you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do the geeky stuff, and then we're gonna do a sound samples, and then I'll give you some final thoughts on this guitar. The first thing we wanna do is make sure the guitar is tuned. I just gotta take a second and say how much I really dig the look of this fretboard. I really love this dark stripe down the center. I just think it looks cool. It gives this fretboard a really interesting and unique look. There we go, so we're in tune. Let's go ahead now and check the relief on the neck. There's two ways we can do that. If you don't have any tools, use your thumb and your finger, just press down on the first fret on your low E string, put your thumb on the last fret of the low E string, and go ahead and tap lightly around in between the 9th and like the 12th fret. This has a little play, in other words, the string is bouncing a little bit. There's a little bit of gap in between the string and the frets, so the neck is not perfectly straight. That doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly straight, but a perfect scenario is the neck is straight. You don't want it to have over bow, and you don't want it to have forward bow, but this looks pretty good. Let's check the scale length on this. And this one is 24 3/4 scale length. So just like a Gibson, which is kind of this guitar's thing. Like I said, they made a US version of this. Back in the day, that guitar was about $1,000. I don't mean new, just about used, floating around. Now people are getting about $1,500 to $2,000 for them used. But it came in dual P90s, dual humbuckers, and I think a single P90 and single humbucker version. But same thing, 24 3/4. But those I think had mahogany bodies. A kume is essentially a wood that they put in the family of mahogany. It's light like mahogany. Let's go ahead and check the action. Let's just start with the 12th fret. At the 12th fret, we are looking at 2.25 millimeters on the low E and 1.75 millimeters on the high E, which is 0.08 on the low E, 0.06 on the high E. On the first fret, we are 0.5 millimeter, and on the first fret high string, we're also at about 0.5 millimeter, so more consistent there. We're gonna call that 0.02 on both sides. That is what we notice. If you watch these videos, the geek stuff, I'd say 9 out of 10 times a guitar ships to you from a factory or from a shop, it's gonna come at about 2 millimeters off the 12th fret. It seems to be very standard. What seems to be going for. This one's just slightly higher than that. Let's go ahead and check the intonation. So one thing to point out on this guitar is that you have a one-piece wraparound bridge that has already been compensated. In other words, they've already built in the compensation of the bridge. Now there's 2 adjustment points on the back, and you can adjust this bridge back or forward just a little bit, and that will help. Like I've always said, when doing a setup, you want to put the guitar in playing position or not have it flat on your bench. However, keep in mind, that is ideal, but either situation will get you pretty close, and you just make your fine adjustments while sitting in the playing position. And right here, I'm looking at my strobe tuner for you guys. I want to see that. That's really good. I mean, it looks good. It looks good. It's the saying is good enough for rock and roll. Now what we want to do is check the nut. The simplest way to do it is play all the notes on the first fret. You got no buzz. Now check it by pushing down on the third fret and checking the distance. And if you have literally no space between the string and the first fret, you have a perfectly cut nut. And that's what this is. I hope that every single one of you that buys one of these comes out of the box just like this. If this is what you get, that's just absolutely fantastic. Now what we want to do is check the frets and see how well they are leveled. Okay, so there's two ways again you can do that. You can play each individual note one at a time. Listening for any buzzing, and the slower you go, the better. Or you can use a fret rocker, and again, there's two ways to do that. Let me grab a fret rocker and go ahead and check each fret. I have a little bit of rock right here. Okay, so this is my 10th fret on my B string. So what I want to do now is play that note. Play the note above it, or below it, I should say, if we're going by sound. The note above it. And I hear no issues whatsoever. It sounds clear. I can even go one lower, one even higher. I'm finding no issues. So even though the fret right there rocks, and you can hear it clicking just a little bit, it's not producing a problem. And that's just because, you know, sometimes they're not perfect. That's because, like I said, if it's not a problem, it's not. So same thing, you can continue on to play. Let's go ahead and go back to the fret rocker. Okay, so no issues whatsoever, except for that one high fret that didn't produce any problems. Now, this is the important part. We're gonna check the fret ends to see how well they polish the fret ends. So let's go ahead and test it. First, we'll do the treble slide. And that is definitely a 3.5 out of 5. For reference, here is the Kramer that got a 1, and you can see it's pretty much a disaster. And here is a Belltone guitar that got a 5 out of 5, and it looks like a brand new sock. And let's go ahead and do the bass side. And this one, you feel just a little bit more, but same thing. So again, very light markings, nothing to feel on there. Could they be polished over? Yeah, they could be highly detail polished and you wouldn't feel anything. The sock would be perfect, but this is more than adequate for the price of the guitar. In fact, again, this guitar is definitely hitting above what I think it should do. Now we're gonna get one more sock and we're gonna try the bridge test. And this is to see if the bridge has any spots that are gonna scratch your hand. A lot of players, especially ones that play, you know, with muted styles, and go here, and yeah, nothing. So as you can tell, very nice. Another thing we like to do is called the handshake. That's where we grab the guitar by where the neck meets the body to see how it feels, if it's comfortable right there. A lot of times when you're playing, that doesn't necessarily, it's gonna mean it's gonna make it or not make it comfortable playing. Everybody's different, but just to see how that feels. And it's a standard Fender 4-bolt or 4-screw construction. It's pretty thick. It kind of pokes you right there. That's where you're kind of feeling it. It doesn't really hinder you from getting up to this 22nd fret, but it's not amazing. So again, it's more of a vintage design instead of a modern design. Now let's go ahead and check the fret polish. And what we're gonna do with that is we're just gonna touch the string and do some bends. Little gritty. Yeah, you can feel it, just a little gritty. So a fret polish would be nice if you want to detail and polish your frets. I think that would be a huge upgrade. And that's something I would probably recommend on this guitar if you've got this guitar. And I want to show that I verified that this is a single acting truss rod. So this is not a dual action truss rod. So essentially righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, and that's it. Now let's talk about a couple things that they don't talk about in the specifications. So like we talked about, this is a maple neck. This is a one-piece maple neck. That's important. The other thing is it is a flat sawn. It is not quarter sawn. Let me double check that. And that is correct. A couple ways to check if a guitar is quarter sawn. Sometimes you'll see the grain and it looks pixelated, like pixelated camouflage. But of course, if you look at the top of the headstock, you would see the grain lines going vertically on the top of the headstock, and these are definitely going horizontally. So they cut this piece as a flat sawn piece. This does have a gloss finish. So this is gloss polyurethane finish, and the finish goes all the way to the edge of the fretboard. So it's over the Indian Laurel as well. And so be aware if you don't like those kind of finishes. If you don't, you can definitely make this satin. You would not damage this guitar in any way if you took yourself some quadruple aught or probably triple aught steel wool, and again, cover up the pickups and just wipe down the entire neck lightly. You would turn that into a more satin type sheen. Looking here at the tuning keys, you can see you have 6 Clusson style tuning keys, and they seem pretty good. Everything seems really nicely put together with these. And for reference, this model is made in China, so they do have some models made in Indonesia. This is a made in China instrument. Let's take off these strings and see what kind of things we have going on. All right, let's take this bridge off. First thing we're going to notice about the bridge is it says Epiphone. This actually isn't news to us. Landon Bailey did a video where he had this guitar and it said Epiphone. Funny enough, he sent me a message saying, Phil, why does this say Epiphone? And I explained it to him. And then later, Guitar World picked up the story, I guess, and talked to Fender, and Fender said that they won't be going forward. So I'm going to tell you what I told Landon. This bridge is cast. This is not machined out of a piece of metal. This was cast into a mold. My guess is the company that made this in China made this mold for Epiphone, and then when Fender ordered this guitar, whatever it was, they just decided to use this mold to make this bridge, and when they did, they left the Epiphone part on. So Epiphone. So there you go. For whatever it is, that's what it is. Couple things we want to check here. Now see how loose this is? This is not good as well. Now to fix that, there is a simple fix. You unscrew it, and then what you do, you just use some Teflon tape, like plumber's tape, wrap it around there. That will work. However, this post, which is metal, has to touch this insert, which is metal, because then this touches the bridge. And what's going on is inside the electronics, there's a ground wire that's touching one of these posts, and then touching the bridge, and so that when your hands touch the strings, it grounds out. If you wrap Teflon around both these posts and you wrap it to the point where there's no metal touching anymore, you'll lose connection. So there's a little fix that you can do that doesn't involve you wrapping anything around that post. I'm going to show you a better trick. You can use a pencil eraser. That's basically all you need. These are very inexpensive. You probably have some laying around in a drawer. You just want a piece of rubber from that pencil eraser. Here you go, there's your pencil eraser. Go ahead and get yourself some scissors. Take your scissors, and you can see when you're looking at the distance between where your post is, because we like the action the way it is. I'm gonna leave it that way. So the distance to the post, you don't even have to really kind of, measure it, just eyeball it. You have what looks to me about 4 millimeters or a 1/4 inch. You cut a piece of the eraser off. Go ahead and put the eraser in there. Get that in there like so. And then reinsert this post to where it was. And at some point, now let me show you this. Ready? I mean, look at that. Perfectly set in there. Another interesting thing about the guitar is it's a 12-inch radius fretboard, so it's flat like a Gibson. Another Gibson style feature for this guitar. And looking here, we have vintage tall. They're definitely tall frets. We would also refer to them as medium jumbo, but they're going to be just a little more narrow. So let's get some measurements here. We're going to start with the nut, and the nut is 42.23 millimeters or 1.662. And at the 12th fret, we are at 2.034 or 51.66 millimeters. Thickness at the 1st fret, we are at 20.60 millimeters or 0.811. And at the 12th fret, we are at 0.880 or 22.34 millimeters. And what we have here is a perfect Fender C profile. This is a template from a American standard Strat. So this is not the professional series, but the older standard Strat. It's a little narrower on the 12th fret than it is on the 1st fret. You can see that's pretty darn close. So we're gonna call that a standard C-shaped neck profile. Let's go ahead and take a look at these electronics. I believe the specifications, they just say Alnico soap bar pickups. So essentially what we have is two P90s. The bridge, the magnets are south facing and the neck is north facing. You'll get 60-second hum from either one of these pickups, but not the totality of them, in other words, when they're in the middle position. So what we want to do is figure out what these are. So let's take a look. So first at the bridge position, we're looking at the bridge and it is rating in at 6.52K, the neck at 6.41. Now that would usually imply to me that they're underwound. So there's not a lot of windings on there because the resistance is so low. I would expect these pickups to rate closer to 8K is what I would expect. So now what we want to do, look at the inductance. Looking at the bridge, we have 4.10 and the neck is at 4.04. So without looking at them, which we will in a second, my guess is that they're using a powerful magnet and a little bit of underwound pickup. It's a very common thing in inexpensive guitars because magnets are cheaper than wire. So you can just give a stronger magnet, use a more powerful magnet to get you something, get it going, and then use a less wire. So that's what I would say. This is obviously the bobbin is really thin. You can see they didn't put a ton of wire on this. Two big magnets on either side. So there you go. That's pretty much what we predicted. This, is just a little bit of glue to hold the outside cover in place. It'll actually stick back together fine, no problem. So there you go. That's what you have. You have no shielding inside the cavity. Okay. So let's take the back plate off. Guys, I've shown you these. You can get these at Harbor Freight for $3. So basically a dent puller. It works as a suction cup. It's really great to take out plates. Okay, let's take a look in there. So again, no shielding in here at all. And what's great is because this is translucent paint, in other words, we can see through the wood, we know they didn't shield it and then paint over it. Here are your two push pulls that are for your volume and your tone control. There's your capacitor for your tone control right there. You have your three-way switch. You have some basic wiring. I don't see anything really shoddy in here. Everything looks fine. You have a basic output jack. Again, everything you expect at a guitar at this price point. Nothing to blow you away. It just looks fine. A couple other things that are worth mentioning. The guitar came in at 7.39 pounds, and I usually do a comparative where I compare other guitars to this, but this is pretty unique. One guitar that definitely comes to mind is an Epiphone dual P90 SG, which ironically comes in at the same price, about $429 to $449, and that's a set neck, but same kind of quality, I think. Now, before we start the sound samples, I want to show you a few things on the guitar that are important. These two push-pull switches that are underneath this volume and tone control. So let's start with the push-pull pot on the volume control. What it does is if you lift up on it, it takes you from parallel to series. What that means is that in the middle position of this guitar, it's going to be very familiar to Telecaster players. You have two pickups, but they are parallel. If you pull up on it, they're going to run in series. That means you're going to get the totality of both, just like a humbucker. It'll get a lot beefier. See, a lot bassier and bigger. Now this is where the switch gets a little tricky. In the neck position, you have the neck. If you pull up on this, just the way they wired it, it's going to immediately bring in the bridge pickup and put you back to the same as the middle position. So let me show you that. Here's your neck. Here's the two in series again. If you go to the middle, no sound change because it automatically defaults you to that middle position in series. Now, if you leave it in the middle, push it down, it's going to thin out. It's going to be in parallel again. So I know that probably sounds confusing. Don't make it confusing. Just understand that if you want a big beefy sound in the neck or middle position, you pull up on this thing. This is why I have to point this out. In the bridge position, it acts as like a kill switch. So it's off. Cool of a little feature. It's probably not something they intended for it to do. It's just the way the wiring is done. That's just what it just does. So what about the push-pull pot on the tone control? That's a phase switch. It only works when both pickups are engaged, so only in the middle position. That's your standard middle position again. It's like nothing's going on. You pull this up, you get out of phase tones. To me, it always sounds very nasal. It's got that country. A lot of country players like it because it cuts through the mix, because it's just really mid-focused. So why would they do this? It's just a lot of tonal options. We'll go through them right now. I'm going to start with the neck pickup. I'm running through a Fender Super Champ X2 and ahead into a 112 Creamback Selection speaker cabinet, and I'm just going to go through the sounds of the neck pickup and the switches, and then the bridge pickup, clean and then dirty. Let's give that a shot. Wow, that makes the notes a lot thicker. You can really hear the difference. Little bass. I can see why that's a lot of fun, especially with the shorter scale. Little vibrato. What's interesting is I thought, you know, because a shorter scale like a Gibson 20.3 and the P90s, I thought it was going to feel more like an SG, since I'm really familiar with SGs. This doesn't feel like that. It feels like a Strat with a shorter scale. A little bit of snap to the Now what's nice is on the middle position, you can do both switches pulled. Get that really kind of... Or you can do variations. So that's pretty cool. Okay, bridge. I really think I'm really digging the middle and that neck. That's really cool. Let's switch over to an overdrive setting. So now I've switched over to the overdrive setting. If you're familiar with that amp, I'm using number 6. Go ahead, neck pickup. It is a little strange for me playing 9s in 24.3 scale, because it's just, I feel really strong. Oh, I like it on the high strings. it's versatile. They've really got a lot of going on. There's a lot of things I really dig about this guitar. It's definitely got its own thing going for the way it feels. I thought, like I said, it would feel more like a Gibson scale length kind of style guitar. It just feels like a Strat, obviously, but just a little shorter. I feel like my arms kind of go in this position instead of this position. And I don't actually necessarily don't like that. I think it's just different. Some things that I think are the weak spot for me. I'm not a huge fan of these pickups. I just wish they had a little bit more going on, a little bit fuller. I think that's the shortcoming of this guitar. I think the way the guitar feels, the fit and finish has been fantastic. The tuning keys have not been problematic, neither is the nut. The bridge, now that the posts are solid and not moving, has not been a problem. And the electronics feel pretty good. Like I said, if I'm gonna nitpick one thing, it's definitely the pickups. Which is, I think, the whole point of guitars at this price range, right? Sub $500 guitars, is that it's a good guitar if you want a good guitar, and it's a potentially great guitar if you want to upgrade a couple components, especially pickups. So there's my thought. Color-wise, I think they did a really good job. I don't know how it's going to come out in the video, but I have to tell you, this is really good looking. They really got this color in a really great way. It looks very vintage, has a really cool vibe to it. All right, so what about winning this thing? How do you do that? Well, like I said, it's super easy. You can go down and click the link down below in the description, or go to www.knowyourgearpodcast.com. Right on the main page, there's a button. You click it, you enter to win. You have to be a US resident, have to be 18. I'm sorry, it's just how it goes. We ship it for free. No one will contact you through social media or ask you for anything, and that's the bigger flag. No one's gonna ask you for any money or anything like that. If you are the winner, you'll be contacted by me, which you'll be able to verify if that's something you want to verify. We're shipping this guitar. You will actually get this guitar and all of these Sweetwater accessories. Sweetwater threw in all kinds of cool stuff. A cup, a battery charger, and just a bunch of cool swag. We're going to throw in some Know Your Gear stickers and picks. We'll pull the winner on the 13th. If you're watching this video after the 13th, obviously it's too late to enter, but keep in mind this is something we really want to do. So giving a thumbs up and subscribing, this could help us from what we're going to do. You can see from this content that I'm making, these are very detailed videos that take me 2 to 3 days to put together. I would like it to where every video I did is a giveaway at the end. That would be a perfect world for me, but to get that, I would need a little bit more help from some more companies, and they seem to only be attracted to subscribers. So there you go. So that's how you can help the channel if you want to help the channel. But other than that, man, I just really appreciate you giving me your time and hanging out till the end. Till the next time, thank you for your time, and know your gear.